Welcome to Dental Business RX. Practice success in 30 minutes or less.
Thank you for calling ABC Dental.
Does your office have a morning meeting or huddle? Do you have a set format, or is it just more of a quick get-together? Do you hold it regularly? And do you think it's effective? And most importantly, has it made your office more efficient and productive? For this week's episode of Dental Business RX, I want to dig into this subject of the morning meeting or morning huddle. Specifically, I want to cover how we teach it here at MGE and how you can use it to improve patient care, increase productivity, teamwork, and profitability. I'm Jeff Bloomberg and I'm your host. So let's just jump right in. The idea of having a morning meeting is not foreign, not just in dentistry, but in any business. It's not uncommon to where you'll see people get together in the morning to figure things out or what's going to happen today. And they may have some kind of a format or they may not. A newer thing now is you'll see what they call stand-up or standing meetings. The idea being that standing is uncomfortable so that the meeting doesn't become too long. Which brings us to a point with meetings. I personally am not a huge fan of meetings. I think they're important, but I hate runaway, long, ridiculous meetings where someone's just going on and on about something that's completely unimportant. And usually when I see that happening, I see a couple things are wrong. The first thing is the meeting itself doesn't have a specific purpose. All right. There's no particular purpose. There's nothing you're trying to attain with that meeting. Or the people coming to the meeting have no idea about what their job is at that meeting and what data they are supposed to provide and coordinate. You may have a meeting that you're holding now. You may not. But I guess the first question I would ask is, what's the purpose of your morning meeting? We have it very clearly laid out, and I'll go over this with you. I have a little handout on the episode webpage that you can download to sort of follow along, which gives you an idea of what we consider a morning meeting. We call it a morning production meeting. Now, this is different. It's not a morning huddle. We call it a morning production meeting. I guess you could call it your morning production huddle, whatever. The name's not important, but we call it our morning production meeting. Now, this is different than a clinical meeting or any other meeting. And you should be having a few meetings in the office. I think I talked about this in a prior episode or a video. You lose track after a while. But, you might have a weekly office manager doctor meeting. The OM and the doctor might coordinate briefly in the morning. But you'll have your morning production meeting. This is different from a clinical meeting. So if you want to get together with your dental assistants and your hygienist to go over clinical issues, what cement are we using for this patient for this procedure? That's fine. That's separate from a production meeting. A production meeting should be related specifically to what I'm going to be talking about shortly. It should be brief. It should be efficient. Everybody has to come prepared. If I have a formal meeting, as opposed to asking somebody, hey, can I talk to you real quick? But let's say I have a formal meeting and I have people sitting around me for this formal meeting and I start mentioning something that we need to coordinate and I get a question like, oh, can I have a pen or can I have a piece of paper? That's a bit of a flunk. They were supposed to come to that meeting prepared, which means they have something to write on, whether it's a tablet or a pen or a piece of paper. There's certain things that a person has to do in order to properly prepare for a meeting, and people have to know that that's actually important. So let's take a look at this thing. I'm just going to whip through this thing as we go through it. I'll walk you through it and kind of give you a few comments as we go. Let's talk about what we teach. This is what we teach MGE clients. We've done several videos on it. We go over it in several of our seminars on our online platform on DDS Success in our team building sessions section. You can find, I did a video on this morning production meeting, but I'll go over the basics with you and you can follow along if you have the handout handy. So the first thing is, what is the purpose of a morning production meeting? The purpose of the meeting is to coordinate the scheduled production and case presentation activities of that day. You're not just working out how are we going to handle the production today, but how are we going to handle sales so that we have future production? That's kind of important. It's also used to line up which patients you will be presenting treatment to or closing cases that you've already presented earlier, when they'll be seen, and to ensure all your patients are moving along on their treatment plans. That's the purpose of the morning production meeting. Now, the idea is that you should be having this meeting every day. And it's a funny thing about meetings. If you start, let's say you start doing a morning production meeting and say your first patient's at 9, you decide you're going to have this at 20 to 9. So you start on a Monday, you do it Tuesday, you don't do it Wednesday, you do it Thursday, and then you don't do it next Monday. It's not going to be a successful thing. The key with any new action, because, I've been asked this over the years about implementation. How do I get to implement? How do I get people to keep doing what I'm asking them to do? Say you have a new referral program. You tell your staff about it and you're all excited, and then they don't do it. Well, here's what happens. When you're introducing anything new, you have to continuously remind people and be consistent with it. Has to be consistent. All right. So if you're going to have a morning production meeting, you have to always have the morning production meeting at the exact correct time every day. After a while, people will become more accustomed to having a meeting than not having a meeting. We have that here at MGE where, it's funny. The meetings in the morning are in my office. I have a conference table in my office, and sometimes we have to move it, right? For whatever reason, I've got something I've got going on in my office or whatever. And someone won't get the text, that we moved the meeting. And it's almost like, people are so used to having this meeting, they'll just walk in. I'm like, oh, the meeting got moved. Oh, okay. And then they go to the other place. People they get into the habit of it. You have to build this as a habit. So when should you have it? I would say at least 15 to 20 minutes before the first patient. 20 is probably safest in case people have to get ready to see that first patient. And that tells you it shouldn't take very long. Now, obviously, this concept applies to, your regular average size dental practice, maybe 8-9 staff, doing 600 to 1.5 a year. If you've got a larger practice, you would have to make some modifications to this. If you have a smaller practice, you can go with what we have in the handout and what I'm talking about here. Now, who should attend the meeting? Now, if you have a smaller practice, everybody should attend the meeting. Everybody should attend. Bigger office, like let's say you have a bigger office, right? You have a schedule coordinator and you have a hygiene coordinator and you have a reactivation secretary. Well, then maybe only the schedule coordinator comes, as the in charge of that area, right? You have to be smart about this. You don't want to have a morning production meeting that you have to have in an auditorium. So if you've got an area where you have someone who's in charge of 10 other staff, you might have just the in charge come to the meeting at that point. But in a smaller office or an average size office, everybody should come. And what are the rules of this meeting? Here are several rules you want to follow. 1, the meeting should be kept brief and efficient. Now, what do we mean by efficient? That means that I am sharing vital data and information. And the key is sharing. I've seen some of these meetings live over the years, especially when someone doesn't really have the hang of how to do it. I remember one in particular I went to, and the office manager just ran the whole meeting, talked the entire time. No one said anything. They all just watched her. That's not a meeting, that's a lecture. All right? People are supposed to exchange vital information in a meeting. Otherwise, why have a meeting? You're trying to get everybody on the same page, right? So it should be kept brief and efficient, but that doesn't mean people don't answer up when it's their job they're supposed to be talking about. Number 2, everybody who's attending needs to come on time and come prepared. Number 3, you want to keep the tasks you assign from this meeting simple and doable. Don't set unattainable tasks. All right. We'll get into that in a little bit. Number 4, the office manager runs the meeting and is in charge of starting, managing, and coordinating activity, as well as when to end the meeting. Someone doesn't just get up and leave. The OM starts the meeting. The OM ends the meeting. The OM runs the meeting. All right, so what happens prior to your morning production meeting? A few things. First thing is the schedule coordinator would listen to any voicemails, check the office email, etc., to ensure that any schedule changes and updates are accounted for. They should print a hard copy of that day's schedule. Now, I've seen some people get fancy about this. They'll have a big screen that displays the schedule, and that's fine. The reason why a hard copy of the schedule for that day is useful, if that's reasonable in your office, is people can make notes as they go through it. Obviously, you don't want to leave this around the office, but you want to have, everybody should have access to the schedule so they can see what's going on. If you bring their attention to, okay, the procedure here at 10 o'clock, this patient had a family emergency and couldn't come, they can see, oh yeah, 10 o'clock. All right, and then prior to the meeting, the hygienist would have reviewed any of the charts of the patients they're seeing that day to see who has outstanding treatment. They should know that. For every patient that's going to be in their chair that day, which of these patients have outstanding treatment and what it is. If the office still uses physical charts, they can bring those with them to the meeting. And the doctor and the office manager would do the same thing for the doctor's patients. All right. So get this idea. The doctor's seeing a patient. That patient still has outstanding treatment that they haven't accepted, even though they're doing some treatment today. The doctor should be aware of that. Same thing with the hygienist. At 10 o'clock, patient still needs 3 inlays. That was what was treatment planned last time. They should know that when they walk into the meeting. All right. So what are you going to do to start this meeting? The first thing that you're going to do is, and it's a little out of sequence in our handout, but I'll bring this up. The first thing that you would do to start the meeting is you would go over how the office is doing. Basic office statistics. Where are we at for this week or this month? What are the new patients? What's the production? What's the collection? Everybody should know where they're at. We've talked about sharing the numbers with your team. And if you have somebody that you feel aren't comfortable sharing numbers with, then that's a problem. And you have to figure out why. Maybe it's the person. Maybe it's you. I don't know. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to share the numbers with your team, because that tells them whether they're actually achieving the office's objectives or not. All right. But you would start the meeting by people reporting where things are at statistically. So your financial coordinator might say where collections are at, or your treatment coordinator, your schedule coordinator might go over what production's at, your PR person or the OM might go over where the patients are, and any other statistics that you want to keep. That's the first thing you look at, because then you kind of get an idea of, okay, where are we with regards to where we're supposed to be? We're supposed to do 100 this month, and it's the 20th. And we're only at 35,000. Okay, we got some work to do here, right? All right. Next thing is the schedule coordinator would point out any changes in the schedule, along with any open time on today and tomorrow's schedule. So the schedule coordinator is going to point out, okay, this person had to reschedule, or, I got it filled with this, and we have this open time from here to here and this open time here tomorrow. Everyone should know this, especially the doc and the treatment coordinators, because especially if it's the doc and treatment coordinator schedule, they need to be filling that. But then you might see the hygienist is doing a perio appointment and they have an opening right afterwards. They may want to just continue, assuming they're not finishing that perio appointment. The hygienist might have a perio appointment and has a big opening afterwards, and maybe in that appointment they're only doing a quad or an arch. Maybe they'll just do the second arch or another quad, right? Everybody should know what the open time is in the office, all right? Now, then what are you going to do? Beginning with the first chair, might be the hygiene chair, you're going to review every patient coming in that day, and as you cover each, you're going to look at what's being done with them. Are there any peculiarities to or specific requirements for them? Is there an outstanding balance to collect from this patient? Does the patient have any outstanding treatment that's already been diagnosed and not accepted? And if so let's say here's this patient at 10 o'clock in hygiene, they need 3 inlays. That was diagnosed the last time they were in. Okay, so if so, who is going to present or discuss this outstanding treatment with that patient? Now, this is where you don't want to make the mistake that you talked to them last time and they said no. So I'm not going to talk to them this time. You're assuming. You have no idea. I would still, do they need the treatment or not? You should definitely bring it up to them. You don't want to be a pest, but you do. Look, you're trying to help this patient. You're trying to improve their health. And obviously we know that dentistry improves not only their quality of life, but potentially their overall health as well. So you care about them. You want to help them. You got to figure out who's going to do this. The doctor's going to come in to do an exam, and then they're going to present the treatment. Or the doctor maybe doesn't have an exam scheduled with that patient that day. They're going to still make sure they carve out 10 minutes to go talk to this patient. All right. Now, you want to then look at, is there time in the schedule to discuss this outstanding treatment? And if not, do you need to bring them back for some type of a consultation? And if you can present it today, do we have time to begin this treatment today? And if not, can we make time if needed? Now, this is an interesting point. You don't want to wreck your schedule to slam more productive procedures in there when there isn't time. But you may have a day where the doctor's schedule is somewhat soft, but in hygiene, there's a lot of patients coming in who have outstanding treatment, and the doctor can just, switch them over as soon as they're done with the hygienist and actually start that procedure and save your day. It's something that you want to look at. And then there are certain procedures which, the patient was asking about straightening their teeth last time, and you do some type of clear aligner product, Invisalign or Candid or Clear Correct or something. And you want to just, you want to talk to them about it. Well, that doesn't take a lot of time to talk to them about it or get it started. It's just a scan, right? So there are certain things you can do which boost up your day that weren't necessarily planned, but this is what you're looking for in the morning. So you would do this with each and every chart. Now, obviously, you want to be smart about this. Let's say the hygienist has a child coming in at 11 and this child doesn't have any outstanding treatment, never did. You don't really have to discuss that at length. They're treatment peculiarities, right? Where, the kid wants to make sure mom's in the room with him, things that you want to know, right? That's what I mean by peculiarities, things that are different from the normal, usual thing that you're going about doing. But you want to make sure that those things are accounted for, but there's not going to be a big treatment discussion about that patient. All right. So you would go through this with all the charts, especially the ones without any treatment, figure out who's going to present. Do we have time to present today? Do we need to bring them back, etc.? Because in certain cases, and we've talked about this in prior episodes, especially the one, forget the episode number as I'm sitting here, which is kind of silly, but the episode on having enough time to present, the one thing you can do to improve case acceptance. And in certain cases, you've got 10 minutes. That patient needs the 4 inlays. 10 minutes is not enough time to explain it to them, answer their questions, etc. You bring them back for a consultation. I'd suggest, I won't redo the episode while I'm sitting here. Just go check that episode out, and it tells you how to do that. But that might require the doctor to do that. So the doctor would have to make sure that they make it over to that hygiene op. All right. So you go through this with every chart, you figure out who's going to see who's going to do what. And what's happening as you're doing this is you're building up sort of a series of things to do, series of targets, things that have to get done, right? So you would list all these out, especially if I'm the financial coordinator and this patient coming in has an outstanding balance and I'm supposed to collect it, I would make a note of that so I make sure that I actually collect that money today, right? And obviously, one of the things we want to look for as we're going through this is we have a certain goal for the month. Is what we have planned today actually on track to pull off our goal? If not, we have to figure out, what do we have to do to get back on track? All right. So before the close of the meeting, each person present notes their tasks, right? The financial coordinator may need to check on Mr. Jones' account, etc. You then adjourn the meeting, which would be the OM. And then here's where, okay, so now get this idea. You've gone through this, you figure out who has to present what treatment to whom, what has to happen with each and every patient that's there today. You've done all that. There's this whole list of tasks that many different people in the office have. This is where I see this goes wrong, is the office manager goes missing. So the office manager makes sure everybody has their list. And then at the end of the day, checks and sees, did you do that? Did you do that? Or maybe not till the next day. Did you do that? Did you do that? That is way too after the fact. All right. The OM should be checking throughout the day. The OM knows that at 11 o'clock, the doctor was supposed to pop into that operatory and mention to that patient that they needed to come back for a consult appointment. Is that happening? Oh no, the doctor's running behind. Okay, how do we debug this? This is the office manager's job to make sure in real time that the things that you set out to do in that morning meeting are happening. And that is what brings about the phenomenal change in the overall productivity of the office. Because you figured out how to do it. Now it actually has to get done. And that's where the OM becomes vital. All right. We'll end off with this. Let's say you hit a bit of a snag and you're having trouble meeting your daily, weekly, or monthly goal. We have a couple pointers here for you. First thing is, be careful to focus on the right things. All right. The purpose of your practice, which is helping patients. It's very easy to fall into the numbers trap. I don't know if you've ever had this situation before. You're not meeting your goal and then everybody's focused on the numbers. I need a big, juicy, productive procedure here at 11 o'clock tomorrow because I have a huge opening, or we have to collect another 20,000. And then that's what everybody's attention goes on. Here's what I'd suggest if you find yourself in that situation. What I would do, and we'll go over some mechanical things you can do, some actual things. But the first thing I would do, and I've told clients this, and so many other people here at MGE have said the same thing. Things just aren't going right or whatever, and you're focused on the numbers. Take the focus off the numbers and go back to why you're there in the first place. You're there to help people. Just go help some people and you'll find out that the numbers start to work themselves out because you're taking the focus, taking the focus off of money, which is where it shouldn't be. There's nothing wrong with making money. But that's not where you want your focus, and you're putting it where it should be, on your patients and why you're there, which is helping people. All right. A couple things you can do if you're having trouble meeting your goal though. You can look at new patients. You can't guarantee what a new patient might need, obviously, but there's always a chance if you have if you have the time to present and start treatment that day. It's not a surefire solution, but it's a possibility. And again, you might have stuff from hygiene that you could move over. You have a big opening on the doctor's schedule. Maybe that 10 o'clock patient seeing the hygienist who needs treatment could move over and fill that opening after they've seen hygiene. There's things you want to think with. Don't just have a never say die attitude, but keep it fun. All right. The other thing is obviously future treatment. You might have stuff on the schedule tomorrow. Obviously, the most important day on the schedule today is today, right? And then the next most important day is tomorrow. So, you have a situation where there's something on the schedule tomorrow, the day after, you can always pull it forward. I find that if you do the meeting and you take a look at what's coming into the practice as far as treatment that day, which patients need treatment, you usually don't have to pull things forward because you'll find somebody, that patient coming for that hygiene appointment who was off today anyway, who would love to get that dentist redone today, and the doctor had time to talk to him. There's always things that you can do. All right. So to wrap it up, I know that was kind of rapid fire here as I went through it. And obviously we have videos on this and we talk about it in other seminars. But the whole point of this thing is to coordinate the office. And, the key to getting production to occur is to figure out where it's going to come from, right? And you want to have a degree of control. In order to have control, you have to figure out, what's actually happening in your office. So a properly set up morning production meeting, and it takes a little bit to get it sort of grooved in. You got to get people running with it and getting the general idea. But if you're doing it on a regular basis, you'll find that this becomes a lot easier and you become a lot more productive. And the last thing I'll say about this, because I've seen this happen maybe a couple times in my career, is when you're going over the morning production meeting, you're looking at numbers and procedures and whatever. All right. So you might have somebody go, why are we so focused on the numbers? Right. All right. So you explain to them, look, obviously, if an office is collecting a lot of money, it means it's helping a lot of people. That's the whole point. That is the whole point. Production is great, but what that represents is what you actually did for a patient. All right. Why are you there? You're there to, help patients improve their dental health, their function, and their aesthetic. That's why you're there, and improve their systemic health, their overall health, and their quality of life. That's why you're there. So most people can think with that. Obviously, if you're doing that a lot, that will show up in more production and more collections. But then you might have somebody who sort of, makes you feel wrong for having a production meeting. I think this is really bad or whatever. It's a rarity, right? But if someone has that type of an attitude and they can't get off of it, that is a bit of a non-starter for me. If someone is that focused on that and is making me wrong for wanting to help people, they obviously don't know why we're there or what it is that we're trying to accomplish. All right. So didn't want to end on that low note. Here's what I'd recommend. Review the handout that you can download. You can also, if you are subscribed to DDS Success, you can check out the video. You probably also see this in MGE seminars. Give it a shot. If you have questions about it, I am totally happy to answer them. You can email me at jeffb@mgeonline.com, right? Or you can just call us here at 800-640-1140. I'd love to see you give it a try, get started, see how it goes, and start improving, because it not only improves profitability and productivity, it will actually improve patient care because you'll have more and more patients getting the treatment they actually need. So try it, have fun with it, and let me know how you do. That's all I have for you this week. I hope this helps. If you want to find out more about MGE, you can find us online at mgeonline.com. And again, you can call us at 800-640-1140. And if you enjoyed this podcast and you'd like to hear more episodes like this, take a minute if you could to follow us and subscribe. You can also leave us a rating or review. We love those as well. And as always love your feedback. If you have any that you want to give me, feel free to email me again at jeffb@mgeonline.com, or at the Dental Business RX website. You can go to the Contact Us blank. All right, folks, that's all I have for you. I'll see you at the next episode.